Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. On this channel, we spend our time looking at fantasy of all sorts, from books to movies to video games, and applying the characters within into the tabletop game Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition. But today, we're going to do things a little differently. We're going to be talking about the mechanics of D&D in depth, and today we're going to be talking specifically about skills. As you build a character, whether you are building them from the background, from the class, from the race, there are a lot of different ways that you can assess what you're going to be proficient in. And the main proficiency that we talk about when we talk about proficiency are skills. Skills are one of the pillars of play that is related to basically everything that isn't combat, whether it be social interaction, exploration, puzzle solving. There are some skills that are related to combat, but for the most part, we're talking about outside. Because a skilled character can make a huge difference in a party in a way that swinging an axe or slinging a spell just doesn't do. Now, to be clear, combat is its own skill set, and magic is one of the main ways to buff skills, but we're going to be talking about the skills themselves, the 18 skills of D&D. Starting from the top in alphabetical order, the very first one is acrobatics, a favorite of rogues. Acrobatics is basically your ability to perform acrobatic maneuvers. This has to do with agility for the most part, flipping and diving and doing things that are just roughly dexterity based. This is a dexterity based skill. I say that while it is a useful skill, it is actually a little more niche than you might think. Going up a wall is not acrobatics. That is athletics. Jumping is athletics. The simple fact is that acrobatics is not a feat of strength. It is a feat of agility. So I give acrobatics a 7 out of 10. You take proficiency in this, and you won't be disappointed unless you think it has to do with jumping. It doesn't. Next up, animal handling. This is a wisdom-based skill, and a lot of people use this skill to mean the ability to tame a wild animal. This is partially true, but the truth is that animal handling at its core is handling tame animals. It is your ability to get on a horse and ride it, or to take a trained hound and run with it into the battle. It is not your ability to deal with wild animals. There are specific spells for that. It certainly wouldn't hurt, but I would argue as a DM that if you try to make an animal handling check on a wild animal, you will do so at disadvantage if you're not magically boosted otherwise. The skill is relatively niche. Unless you're a mounted party or a party with a pet, then animal handling doesn't really come into it much. I say this is a 4 out of 10 skill. Not a great one to go with. Next, Arcana, an intelligence-based skill, and one of the key intelligence-based skills. This is a knowledge set. This is how much do you know about magic? The history of magic, magic items, magic spells. Arcana checks cover a lot of that. Magic is everywhere in D&D. Unless you're playing a low magic campaign, which are a thing that people play, most campaigns involve a good amount of magic, since most classes have a decent amount of magic built into them. Knowing a lot about magic comes in handy in most situations, whether you're talking about spells, whether you're talking about traps, whether you're talking about enchantments. Arcana is a great skill, and I give it an 8 out of 10. Next up, athletics. This has to do with power. This is the only skill that is based in strength. All of the skills have a stat boosted in them. None of them are connected to constitution, and only one to strength. Athletics. Your ability to run, your ability to jump, your ability to climb, your ability to swim. It is the ability that lets you move. However, it only is really used if you're in a situation you're not good at. If you have a climbing speed, you don't have to make an athletics check to climb. If you have a swim speed, you don't have to make an athletics check to swim. Athletics is for when you don't have that particular skill. You have to use athletics instead. This is tricky. I wouldn't recommend someone try to swim or climb without a swim or climbing speed or some magic buffing them. Relying on an athletics check to do it for you is not the best idea. It's not a useless skill by any means, but I say that it is the backup. And I'm not going to give a lot of points to a backup. I say 6 out of 10. Next comes deception, your ability to lie. How convincingly can you lie? Now, this is not magic lying. This is not the suggestion spell. This is not a charm spell. This is just your ability to create a good lie. I say this ties heavily to role playing. If the character playing the game says, I want to lie, I'm going to ask them what the lie is. I'm going to make up a lie. And then I'll determine, based on the feasibility of that lie, whether the deception check is just a flat one, rolled with advantage or disadvantage, because roleplay comes into this. But having a good deception skill means that even if you botch the roleplay, you have proficiency in deception, and you roll high, turns out the guard bought it, even though your lie was stupid. And having a poor deception skill means even the best roleplay in the world may not stick. So this is a really, really useful one for most social situations. You're going to lie a lot in D&D, most likely. I say 9 out of 10. Then comes history, another intelligence-based skill. History has to do with your knowledge of past events, but it's not just past events. It's also the history of a kingdom, the history of the line of succession or wars that took place. Battle tactics may come into history. History is not a useless skill. It actually gives you a lot of relevant information for current events. Understanding history helps you not repeat it. That is a wise statement. It's still a knowledge-based thing, and a lot of this information can just be found. You can go and ask people for this. But still, having a character who knows it in a pinch isn't bad. I say niche skill, 6 out of 10. Next up, insight. Insight is one of the most commonly taken skills in D&D, and there's a good reason for it. A lot of people use insight as a lie detector. I feel like that is a misuse of the skill. Insight tells you intention. You have insight into what other people's intentions are. Do they intend good? Do they intend bad? Do they have your best interests at heart? Are they being wholly honest? It is not a lie detector. That's what the spell Zone of Truth does. But it is still a fantastic skill in a lot of situations. It can read body language, so you can tell if someone's about to attack. It can read into social situations to see if someone is being forthcoming. It won't tell you they're lying, but it might give you a hint. It is a great skill in almost every situation, and as one of the primary wisdom-based skills, I give it 10 out of 10. Next, intimidation. Intimidation is the opposite of deception. Instead of lying, you're just going to bully people. This can be helpful. Having an intimidation stat is a good way to get people to do what you want them to, especially if you're interrogating them. I, as a DM, have a house rule for this. Intimidation is a strength-based skill, because you would use your power to intimidate someone. You could also use charisma if you wanted. I give it like that option. Rules as written, though, it's just charisma. So 8 out of 10, rules as written. In my game, 9 out of 10, because using strength to like bully people is cool. But rules as written, 8 out of 10. Next comes investigation. A lot of people think investigation is a great skill. I disagree, and here's why. Investigation, first of all, it's an intelligence-based skill. It is not wisdom-based. So it is using your knowledge that you have in your memory to figure things out. And a key aspect of investigation is that you have to have information to interpret. See, investigation is not searching a room for clues. Investigation is not investigating in the dictionary sense, where you are going to investigate the room to find something. No, that's perception, which we'll talk about in a sec. Investigation is taking things you already have, clues you have already found, and then extrapolating information from that. Most players do this in the meta. They investigate by taking clues the DM gives them and figuring out what that means. Rolling an investigation check doesn't give you more clues. It means your characters in game can figure those clues out. If the players are struggling in the meta to figure something out, rolling a successful investigation check means the DM may give you an answer. But most players don't need this, unless it's a really hard puzzle, and at which point you'd have a high DC to beat anyway. I say investigation's 5 out of 10. It is not the thing everyone thinks it is, and that merits it low for me. Next is medicine. Medicine is a wisdom based skill which allows you to stabilize someone who's dying or potentially treat a disease or an injury of some kind. I think this is trash for one basic reason. There are spells that do this 10 times better than a skill check. Your first port of call, if someone is down, is to use a healing spell. Your second port of call, if someone is down, is to force feed them a healing potion. Your third port of call is to use a stabilizing spell. Spare the Dying is a wonderful, and it's a cantrip, so you can't run out of it. Your medicine checks should be like your fourth option. Like, if you're doing a medicine check, something has gone wrong. You have healer's kits, healing potions, healing spells, healing, stabilizing cantrips, anything. Anything other than this skill. This is your last resort, and if you're taking proficiency in this, it's because you don't have any healing spells in your party, and at that point, you're already not doing great. 3 out of 10. This skill is a Hail Mary already, and taking proficiency in it is a waste of your proficiency, if you ask me. Then comes nature, another knowledge-based skill. This is not the ability to survive or track in nature. This is nature-based knowledge. This is your ability to effectively know things about plants, animals, tracking, trails, any sort of nature knowledge. Nature knowledge is handy whenever you're outside cities. Knowing what's poisonous and what isn't, what animals you can expect to see. Obviously, there are some other things, like rangers are great at this, outlanders are good at this, but if you don't have one of those, the nature skill is great, and it does also feed a little bit into natural magic, such as the Fae and other things like that. I say 8 out of 10. Then, perception. Possibly the most common skill in all of D&D. It even has passive perception written under the skill box on a standard character sheet because a lot of players want to know what their passive perception is, because perception is your ability to notice things. It is what people think investigation is and what people think perception is. It's your ability to spot things far away, spot things up close, notice anything. When people want to stealth, they have to beat a perception check. It is literally your ability to see and hear and sense anything. Perception is a 10 out of 10. It is the 10 out of 10. And if you're making a character that doesn't have perception, you better hope somebody in your party who has perception likes you, because it is essential to make a character who isn't going to be surprised all the time. Performance comes next. Performance is a niche skill, but a good niche skill. It's charisma, first of all, and it gives you the ability to perform, to play music, or to act, or to dance. It is the performing arts. The classic thing is for the bard to use this skill to earn free lodging somewhere in a tavern, or to impress a king, or somebody like that to earn a favor, or whatever. But it can also be the ability to see other people's performances and know what they're doing so you can join in. It is a good skill that catches a lot of social interaction in it. You might say that's insight. I say, why not performance? If you're an actor, it's easy to spot another actor. I say 7 out of 10 for performance. Next, persuasion. And for my money, persuasion is the best charisma skill. It is the one that allows you to persuade, to allow people to do as you want them to do without having to lie or threaten them. It's a way to coerce. And it is the most good way to handle social interactions, because lying and intimidating, that's neutral or evil or chaotic territory. Simply persuading someone, that's a pretty moral way to do it. Just convince someone to do something different. I say 9 out of 10. It is the best social skill for my money. Then religion comes next. This is the last of the intelligence-based skills, and it's the least useful in my opinion. It tells you about the gods. It tells you about the higher planes occasionally, although I would say Arcana might blend into that too. Unless you're playing a campaign that heavily involves extraplanar beings and the gods themselves, this is not the most useful. It could help in some situations, but I give it 5 out of 10. Then, sleight of hand, another dexterity skill, and this is your ability to pickpocket, but it's more than that. It's also your ability to do things with your hands without people noticing. If anyone ever tries to cast a spell that has somatic components without being noticed, you better believe there's going to be a sleight of hand check involved, because that should be obvious. I would say that sleight of hand also comes into things like lock picking and doing anything that requires fine motor controls. Maybe even forging documents could be a sleight of hand check. I would say that depends on the DM, but in my book, sleight of hand is a useful skill when it's a useful skill. It's not going to help you in combat. It's not really for exploration unless you're disarming a trap or picking a lock. But in social situations, it could come in handy. And for thieving and mischief based skills, I'd say it's a pretty good skill to have. 7 out of 10. Then stealth, arguably the second most taken one over perception, maybe even the first, depending on your kind of game. Stealth is exactly what it sounds like, your ability to hide, and your ability to hide well. Stick to the shadows, stick to obscurement, and don't be seen. Now, stealth is not invisibility. A lot of people think that you can just be hiding in a dark room with no cover, do a stealth check, get a really good number, and then someone can come in with a torch and they won't see you. Yeah, they're going to see you because you're not invisible. It's not the rogue's, shadow ability or anything like that. It is not from a video game. Stealth just means how good can you stay hidden if the situation allows you to stay hidden. Still a great skill. The ability to sneak is important in D&D. When you can avoid combat and confrontation, stealth is usually how you do it. And when you're severely outnumbered and you don't want to fight, stealth is your master. It is 10 out of 10 territory. And then the last skill, survival. Survival's okay. It's your ability to hunt, or fish, or forage, or track, or navigate a natural environment, a forest, or anything that isn't a city. It's not bad. I would say having an outlander in your party is preferred, or a ranger, like I said earlier. In general, I say survival 6 out of 10. It's good when it's good, but most games don't track things like that. They'll have rations or they'll just have an outlander with them. It's not the greatest skill. It's too easily replaced. It is your third or fourth option, similar to medicine, except the medicine check, if you're doing it, you're really, really screwed probably, whereas survival, you're probably not. There are ways to get better, and I would say that the survival check is better than the medicine check. It's not as critical for the party, if you will. I say 6 out of 10 for survival. All in all, top 3 skills: insight, perception, and stealth. Those are your top 3. You're looking at 2 for wisdom, for the record, and 1 for dexterity. Lowest skill on the ranking, I say medicine, closely followed by animal handling. These ones just aren't useful or don't do what people think they do. I'm going to say that you should choose the skills you want to choose. Your skills are yours. What are you good at? But mechanically, as far as their versatility, their ability to get you out of a sticky situation, there are some that are better than others, and that's what I made this video for, to talk about the skills candidly. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below, and keep your eyes peeled for more videos coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.